I hope so. Otherwise, I have no idea. I'm going to ad-lib the whole time here. Do I have a panel? Do I have my panel here? They're coming. With that kind of reality check, anybody here from the American College of Healthcare Educators? You're in the wrong room. You're in there. Everybody here? Good morning, everyone. I'm Scott Taylor. Some of you know me. Some of you don't know me. Some of you probably know me all too well, but I work here at InfoCommerce, helping people in the data business, and I love data, and I am a self-described data bigot, okay? I hate bad data, and so should all of you. I'm not a people bigot, love people, but hate bad data, and today with more people in the data business than ever before, there's a lot of big data out there, and there's a lot of bad data out there. And so we got to help them make it good, which leads us right to the group we have here. So a bunch of gentlemen who represent some really good and in fact excellent data, which is the topic of our conversation today, excellence in action. So every year we do a model of excellence program. It answers the musical question, who's doing data right and content right at this moment? And we profile them on our website. So if you're not familiar with our official profiling technique, there's a little write-up on every single one of these companies today, as well as 150 of them that have been done mostly by Russell for the last 10 years or so. And we're going to look at the new ones today. We're going to revisit some of the previous winners a little later today. And they're all tagged with our business taxonomy, which again, if you're not familiar with that, take a look at that business taxonomy, download it off of our website. Megan St. John really has managed that for a lot of years, and it's a way to start to classify and understand business models and approaches to the data business, which again, unites us all here today. So those that are honored in the 2013 Models of Excellence companies are resetting the standards for data excellence based on content, innovation, utility, functionality, revenue, viability, ambition, and market readiness. Is that, you guys ready? All right, no pressure. So we're going to have each of them come up in strict alphabetical order, because that's the way we work here, and give us just a little overview of their data, their market, and their model, and then hopefully as they're talking, please think of questions we can fire up here and we'll get an interactive discussion. So I want to welcome here, just to kind of list everybody. First, we've got Jeremy Brofman from Enigma. We've got David Chun from Equilar, Rob Heiser from Segment, and Alex Rosenberg from Find the Company. So first, let's give them a round of applause for winning this year. I want to thank you all. So first one up is Brofman, Jeremy.
Thank you. So I'm Jeremy Brofman. I'm the CEO of Enigma. And really what Enigma tries to solve is the fact that there's a huge amount of data that's in the public domain generated by companies, individuals, and government institutions, but it's not accessible. And our definition of accessible really is a new data definition of accessible. It doesn't mean that you have a license to it or that you can get it in a PDF. What it means is that you can search through it, discover relevant data that you would have never otherwise considered, and then very easily plug it into your workflows. So really what we do is provide discovery and access of a very broad variety of entity-specific data to all of our clients. The reason it's broken is because all of this data, which comes generally in semi-structured or unstructured formats, is really nowhere is it searchable, and there's nowhere where it's all in one place. So we get data, mailed to us on CDs every day. We scrape it from websites, news articles, etc. And then we have 3 products that are based on top of that. One is a web application, which you can think of as a Google search portal with a lot of analytical tools of all of this data. So you could come to Enigma with either a topic or an entity that you're interested in, run a search, and be delivered results. So I'll give you a quick example. If you come to Enigma and search for McDonald's, the first thing that comes up is a structured table of all of McDonald's FCC licenses. Turns out that every drive-through in the United States needs an FCC license to operate, and that license contains the entity owner name, it contains the location the data was opened, et cetera. And so if one of our clients is targeting fast food restaurants, either as a client or as an analyst or something like that, that's actually one of the most powerful indicators. But without having all of this data in one place, that type of insight wouldn't exist. So our web application is something that we sell to professional services firms as well as all of our API clients. And then our API clients really breaks into two different segments. One is what we call the analytics side, which are the service providers or big data analytics firms who are going to clients, taking all of their internal data, but then using Enigma's data to supplement it. And marketing and underwriting firms who are using our data, correlating it against historical performance of either loans or marketing efforts, and adding different indicators on. And the last piece is customers who are coming to us to use data in their client-facing applications. And I hope there are a lot of future customers for us in the room today, because what we find is there are a lot of data companies that solve very specific problems for their clients, but then go out and find data to supplement their resources or to supplement their client offerings, but that isn't their core competency. And we really strive to be the central place where people can come and get data in a fully updating way, plugged into their APIs with incredibly low frictions. Are we taking questions now or at the end?
You're done? That's
I'm
fantastic. Done. All right, great. I'm going to sit over here if you don't mind. I'm going to sort of open it up here. Yeah, if anybody had any quick questions now, otherwise we're going to go through everyone and then open it up. So we'll just move along here. David, I think you're next.
Great. Thank you. And thank you for the opportunity to be here to share with you what we're doing here at Equilar. So my background, I was an investment banker in a former life with DLJ, and back in the late 90s when the Edgar system became available, sitting there in drafting sessions and doing, frankly, monkey work, I said there's got to be a better way, and so decided to go off and build a company around that to mine that information to sell services around it. So we are recognized as a leader for executive compensation data. I'll talk more about the various aspects that we're in, but you probably have seen our name in the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, and others when there are stories around executive pay. And especially for a room like this, we get a lot of questions from people. It's a topic that's obviously near and dear to everyone's heart, and it's an interesting space to be in given everything that's gone on over the past decade with starting off with Sarbanes-Oxley, most recently with Dodd-Frank, and now with the adoption of SAM Pay that you're seeing with public companies. So we are, some background, like I said, we got started in 2000. We have about 100 employees. Headquartered out in Northern California. We have about 1,200, 1,300 clients. We work with over 70% of the Fortune 500 and been recognized for a number of growth awards. We're also privately held, have not raised any outside capital. We start off with a small angel round and have been able to self-finance the business and grow that. As we all know, with data subscription businesses, if you can have a good recurring revenue stream, that certainly helps to fund a lot of various growth initiatives. So as we look at our business, I think of it in three major areas. The first one is where the bulk of our revenue is today, is what we call our insight business, which is around compensation benchmarking, and I'll talk more about the governance part of this in a second. But we started off capturing data around executive pay, which our clients were using to help with their board members to determine what to pay their board, how to compensate the executives. Over the last several years, we've gotten more, as we've all seen with the whole GRC space, especially around corporate governance. We've been playing a greater role there, working with corporate secretaries, GCs, board members directly in that particular area. And so that's, like I said, mentioned earlier, working with a number of public companies on that side. Media, it's not necessarily a formal business for us, but that's an area that we take very seriously and invest a tremendous amount of resources. As some of you had sat through, had the opportunity to listen to Minal and Russell yesterday talking about taking data and to identify the trends. I think that's something that we take a lot of pride in doing quite well, and having very good relationships with people like Joanne Lublin at the Wall Street Journal, Gretchen Morgensen at the New York Times, and others. And that's, it's been very effective for us, frankly, a low-cost way when you think about the amount of resources that we invest versus what we'd have to pay for ads and whatnot. It's worked very effectively on that end. And last but not least, I'll talk about the Atlas piece, and I'll go into each of these businesses a bit more later. It's basically repackaging the information that we've accumulated around executives, not only around their compensation, but also about their relationships and who they know, to be able to repackage that for different use cases. So I'm going to steal an analogy that I read earlier this year, talking about, I think it was an article about MailChimp, and they were talking about the making of orange juice and what you're able to do with the pulp. And so think of us tracking compensation data. That is our orange juice. So that's what we're focused on. So we're taking, our primary source is information from the SEC filings. As many of you know, companies are required to disclose the pay of the 5 highest paid executives. So in addition to aggregating that, cleansing it, normalizing that, we also have companies giving us proprietary data of other senior executives outside the top 5. And so it's an area that we've built over the past 5 or 6 years. It's taken, frankly, a lot of effort, but we've gotten to the critical mass, because for those who've tried to build surveys and to doing it effectively, it's always kind of, okay, getting that first one and kind of getting that, overcoming that coefficient of friction and be able to let that business grow. So that's allowed us to build a very successful business here for compensation benchmarking. We've built proprietary algorithms on setting peer groups. It was actually written about in the New York Times about 2-3 weeks ago. And then this whole concept around pay for performance. So that's the making of the orange juice. So I think the reason why I was selected to be up here this year was, okay, if you can take the pulp left over, can you, as we know with data, if you can repurpose that data, once the cost has been incurred, the subsequent businesses, the margins can be pretty high. And so what we've done is we've taken our 14 years of data and have repackaged it for our Atlas piece. And we're now in the process of aggregating that with other information. And we're finding pretty interesting use cases around it. So one for general business development, to see how people are connected to people. Money in motion. We've got a number of universities and nonprofits using this to help keep track of potential donation opportunities, and then also being used for board and executive recruiting. So it's basically taking the same workflow that we've integrated and have basically built a whole new product around it. And so on the insight side, this information is being used by corporations, the institutional investor community, compensation consultants, and others. Our core business there, that continues to grow nicely, especially in this era of saying pay. And then on the Atlas piece, we're just top of the first inning here. We're finding a lot of interesting opportunities. I'd encourage everyone, we do have a freemium version of this. You can go to equilar.com/Atlas, set up your own account, and we're getting a number of registrations each day, gaining a lot of insight through this whole process, and feel free to take a spin. So I will now turn it over to Rob.
Thank you. So I'm Rob Heiser with Segment. To give you a little bit of company background, I'm CEO and co-founder. We were founded in 2007, privately owned, privately funded, headquartered in the tech capital of the world, Akron, Ohio. We're what we call a fast-growing digital marketing solutions company. A lot of cross-vertical, so it's not just, we're known for financial institutions and our partners in that space, but really have grown cross-vertical. We sell directly, but most of the time we sell through strategic partnerships where they white label our product. And right now we have 36 employees in hiring. The good thing about Akron is we don't have much competition. So to talk a little about Segment and what we do, it's very unique. We take large data sets. We work with, like I said, multiple verticals, known for the financial industry. So they're very rich in terms of what types of data they have, very heavily transactional based. We do dynamic segmentation on it, and we do that in real time. So we can do it as fast as we get the data. we create basically personalized and actionable insights. And what does that mean to one of our partners is we predict behavior based on past group behavior. And so we can actually reach their customers, understanding the data that the history has told us in the past, and deliver that omni-channel. And we can do that across 4 million publishers over the internet. And we do that while protecting privacy. And privacy for us is first and foremost. So we follow all the strategic and highly regulatory industry regulations, GLBA, HIPAA, FIEC, and we stay on top of that. And then we deliver that again against an omni-channel delivery. And it's really about understanding the insights of where the customer is going and predicting that. And in today's world, with as much information that's coming to a consumer, you really have to hit them in a small window of the time that they're ready to make a decision. And so it's really about relevancy. And so when we talk about relevancy, if you look at this graphic, we are, who here has received an email that they don't care about? I heard the CIO of IBM said that they get him 100 a day, right? Basically, that's the difference is what we do is about relevant and timeliness. If you see all the channels that we consume data, most of what we consume bounces off of us. There's actually a stat that we consume about 5% of what we see. And if you look at this channel, it's about the things that we consume is about relevancy and how important it is to you at the time of that life. So I have 3 kids. What's probably important to me is college. They're 9, 7, and 4. 10 years ago, it wasn't college, right? Because I didn't have any kids. So it's about what the message is to me right away. So what does this mean? This is a very simple graph of exactly what Segment does. We take data, and we do analytics. Our analytics are based on what we call key lifestyle indicators. It's a lot like metadata, similar to maybe AdWords in Google, where you're searching for a word. This is about the insights of what's happening in that lifestyle of that consumer. These move in and out, so it's not, they expire, they change on a regular basis when we get data. And they basically trigger campaigns that are sitting and waiting for a customer to then promote an action. And then you'll see this little red X. We do all this without knowing any PII information, so we don't have any personal identifiable information. We work with financial institutions to deliver cross-sell opportunities for one could be for a home or auto loan in the retail space. It could be promotion of an offer to try to pull them back into the store. In the college market, it could be around what books are they buying and what kind of data that we receive from those colleges. And then we deliver that again against any delivery channel. We think there's actually a very large revolution that's changing. And we because we're so heavily focused on privacy by design and what we do around privacy, we think that the world is really getting ready for a drastic change. And a lot like what we've seen in the airports and right after 9/11, where you could walk on a plane and basically walk and do whatever you wanted to get on that plane. And now you go through TSA and you have to take everything off. And by the way, I love TSA pre-check. It's like the best thing ever. But for the last 10 years, it was almost a violation, right, to get on an airplane. But it was important to protect that. And I think data is that next revolution. If you look at where the industry is going, and we believe there's a significant change in how data is accessed, what the access control is, and how you use that outside of your walls. I think everybody can protect data and does a very good job of protecting data. The Financial Times actually said that 25% of companies today will have reputation damage in the next 5 years from a breach of data. And no offense to the IBM, so 20% of CIOs in a heavily regulated industry will lose their jobs in the next 5 years because they didn't institute compliance around data. And so leveraging data for marketing purposes and leveraging it across multi-channel is important as long as you can protect it, and that's what Segment does. Thank you.
Right.
I'm Alex Rosenberg, and I work at Find the Best. So Find the Best was founded in August of 2010 by Kevin O'Connor with the goal of giving our users the information and tools to think like experts on any topic. We like to think of this as big data for the little guy. And so our first application was findthebest.com, which is the application for which we're most famous. On Find the Best, you can research objective and structured data about products and services so that the next time you make a big purchase decision, you can decide with confidence. But since then, we've launched a number of vertical search sites, including Find the Company, which I'll talk about in a second, but also Find the Data, which is a tool for browsing government and reference information. We've been growing really quickly. We've got more than 20 million visitors a month across our portfolio of vertical search sites, and we're backed by $17 million in financing from Kleiner Perkins and New World Ventures. So for Find the Company specifically, we looked out at this market and we thought researching and establishing the reputation of a business for most users is incredibly expensive and time-consuming. So on the left-hand side of the slide, you can see all the questions that we think make up a firm's reputation. What products does a company make and how are they reviewed and rated? Which executives work at a company and how are they paid and what are their backgrounds? Does a company have any marquee suppliers or customers? Have they gotten any government contracts? Collectively, these questions make up a firm's profile and reputation, but getting the answers to these questions is really difficult or horrible, basically. So your choices for research we saw were free, really bad sites like Manta or Yellow Pages, which are great for finding a phone number of a Chinese restaurant, but if you're looking for a soybean manufacturer in Colorado with over $10 million in revenue, good luck. Or you could pay hundreds of thousands of dollars or tens of thousands of dollars to expensive paid research tools that had great information, but only for highly specialized analysts like financial analysts or people, skilled trade professionals. So we thought, why not give the answers to all the questions on the left away for free? And so we did. We created Find the Company about 12 months ago, which takes data from dozens of authoritative sources, including public records and filings, licensed data sets from financial intermediaries, proprietary databases, user-generated content, and then the network of Find the Best sites, and then aggregates, validates, and curates that information to create a central company profile. And we've got 32 million companies and organizations in the United States, and we're showing things like firmographic data, products and services from Find the Best. We just launched executive compensation a couple weeks ago. Government contracts. So yeah, we're competing with all these guys, but hopefully we can find a way to work together as well. And so we're creating these rich company profiles for free. We've had great growth over the last year, so about 4 million people a month come to findthecompany.com specifically, and they have totally different use cases for using the data. So there's customers looking to evaluate a new vendor, partners looking to evaluate a new business partner, suppliers, increasingly the news and media and analysts, and they're all getting a ton of utility out of viewing the information on Find the Company. So we started with the core company profiles, but have since expanded to a deeper set of research tools for understanding companies and organizations. So like I said, a couple weeks ago, we launched executives. We have financial statements, IPOs. We're creating an immigration profile or footprint of every company in the United States by showing you how many H-1B visas did a company file for and how much do they typically pay their people. A little bit awkward when we show that to new partners because we can see how much you pay your engineers. And we're going to be launching a ton of new content over the next couple quarters. We have 3 page types. So the first is our search results page where you can find and filter. This is where a user enters criteria like soybean manufacturers in Colorado with $10 million or more in revenue. And we'll filter down the overall set of companies to find the ones you're looking for. We have a comparison page where you can compare any 2 entities or up to 5 entities in our database. So this is executive compensation for Mark Hurd, Elon Musk, and Marissa Mayer. And you can see all the facts for that given entity lined up side by side. And then finally, our profile pages where you can research and conclude. Think of this as the Reader's Digest view about any given entity. So this is Apple's company profile where you can see firmographic information, what products and services does Apple make across categories, and how are they rated and reviewed on findthebest.com, who are their competitors, who are their suppliers and customers, what government contracts have they won, etc. Everything you'd want to know about Apple on one page. And that's Find the Company. Thanks.
Right. Gentlemen, thank you all very much. So I got a couple of sort of product questions here. I'll go in whatever order. So Alex, looking at your stuff here first, so how is that different than, let's say, a classic like D&B, Hoover's, that sort of thing?
So we take data from multiple sources. So we're licensing data from some of those folks, and we just think that they only tell part of the story. But when we get data from dozens of government databases, from our own proprietary databases, we can create a much more comprehensive profile. That's one. And then two, we spend a lot of time thinking about how can my grandma use this data to understand Apple Incorporated versus those other enterprises which are focused on the very specific types of users.
Is that your core market, the grandma market? Or
we do. We kill it. We kill it with
the
grandmas. Yeah.
All right, that's cool. So you work with Hoovers, or I mean, do you license Hoovers data? And
we license data from a number of different sources, but people like them, yeah.
Okay. When I was on your site, they served an ad up, so I was just making sure that wasn't a total competitive thing going on right on there. But it's free?
Yeah, it's free. Can't compete with free.
No, you can't. So you license data, but then you...
Yeah, what we'll do is we'll work with a company that has enterprise clients, and what they're really selling are the really advanced tools and functionality to manipulate and integrate that data into their own internal processes. So we'll go and we'll get a summary view of that information and then use it on our website so that we're not cannibalizing any of their enterprise clients.
All right, great.
So we send a lot of leads to companies like that as well who license this data. That's been a great model. So hoping to also find a lot of new partners and clients here.
Yeah, everybody should look up their own stuff on here, right? Start there and see how they're doing. So Jeremy, I saw your Disrupt demo on your site, which was awesome. And there was that widget you've got where if you're doing just a regular search, that plug-in, I'm just giving you the tips so they don't know what I'm talking about. So you can just kind of explain that part, because that part of the application was really cool.
One of the things we developed, we have a robust set of tools that basically helps us bring in all this data and structure unstructured data. And so we started building a tool that basically could scan news articles, identify all the entities, and then tag them. And it was originally developed to bring data into our system, into our core product, but then we realized that it was something that we could actually use to serve our clients and have them discover data better. And so what we built was a plugin that basically you can put on Chrome or any browser, and it scans the text of any page that a client is on, identifies all of the names, entities, and locations on the page, and then cross-references them with Enigma. So if you're reading about Apple Inc., Apple Inc. will be highlighted. You can click on that and a pop-up will appear that'll show you all of the different databases where Apple Inc. appears, which could be their H-1B visas, or it could be their government contracts, or it could be their patents, et cetera, and link directly in. And the goal there is to sort of really bring the context of all of this data, which previously was hidden, right into the natural workflow of analysts. And then we also try and do that conversely with our APIs, bringing it into the workflows of the more analytic-focused client.
No, it's really cool. I encourage everybody to go to his site and watch this in action, because you look at a search and all of a sudden there's the structure, right? You've just got this second dimension or third dimension, if you will, of all this structured data in there. David, we love when people repurpose, use every part of the chicken is another one, right? So, but that's
open the stomach at the undigested.
Yeah, there's nothing left over. That's wonderful. But the media opportunity, I think that's an opportunity that a lot of folks in the room could probably try to get to.
Sure.
But it has some real watch outs in there. If you have some advice on how to get PR off your data.
Exactly. I mean, it's especially with compensation, it's a very sensitive topic, and the media loves to write about it, and we just happen to be in the right place at the right time. And as I said, better lucky than good. I mean, we literally launched our product in December 2001 when Enron and Anderson were blowing up. So starting 2002, you had Tyco, WorldCom, Adelphi, and our first break was the perp walk with Mark Schwartz, the CFO of Tyco, where the Reuters reporter called us up. It was like four of us sitting in a room in Northern California. What did Mark Schwartz make as a CFO last year? So we ran a report, sent an email over, $51.2 million, and lo and behold, the next day it shows up. So that was kind of the first break for us, and been able to successfully build on that. But it is you have to also be very conscious here that you don't want to bite the hand that feeds you, because we're also selling to corporations who are subscribing to use our data to figure out what to pay their executives. And so we get, frankly, we get more requests that we probably turn down than we actually choose to pursue. Because some of these requests are, we're doing the story, I'll mention his name because he's in the paper today, but Larry Ellison, what was it, what, can you tell us this about Larry Ellison? It's like, we can tell you that, but off the record, we don't want attribution for it. So we've been very careful about where we've chosen to get that, because, we want to make sure we balance our reputation. Like, we are trusted, we're not, we've been able to position ourselves out in the marketplace as being a trusted, neutral, independent provider. We're not an activist group. We're not trying to, we're not, the gotchas and stuff like that. So I think that's something to be very conscious of, is sort of how, if this shows up on the cover of the Wall Street Journal, the market you're trying to reach, how are they going to react to that? And to be able to have people you can talk to say independently, do you think this is going to be perceived positively or negatively?
So you just provide the data point.
That's right. Yeah. So good point. We'll never. Well, I try. The people on our team who are working directly with the media, we do a lot of coaching, training. Be prepared that so and so may try to, lure you in to say something that is not just the data, and versus something more qualitative.
No, that's a very important border there to not cross into. What's your opinion of this?
Yes.
So what does this mean? Even though on the flip side with your clients, it's all about, so what does this mean? But in the press, it's a different story, right? So anybody looking at dealing with the media, depending on your positioning, it's great to be that constant go-to source, right? Is that what you're looking for?
Exactly. And we, in addition to being the go-to source, we've also on our site have put in a bunch of free resources. For example, I mentioned earlier SandPay, where shareholders are voting on SandPay. We put up a separate SandPay portal, so if you want to look at the vote results of any company. So actually the media has been going to that and have just self-service been pulling statistics off of that and citing them in stories.
And do you have regular, I saw that just the trend, so do you produce, here's a quarterly or yearly trend kind of thing?
So we actually produce roughly about 20 reports a year. And we've got a nice, we call it the trifecta, where if we produce a report, reach out to a particular reporter, can we give, hey, here's an exclusive. Do you want to write about this ahead of time? For example, the woman who writes the CFO journal in the Wall Street Journal, if it's a story around CFOs, give that person the opportunity to write the story, and then 2 days later do an email blast on our end that says, the report as featured in the Wall Street Journal, and then we get a bunch of leads, which we then turn over to our sales team, which leads to business down the road.
The whole rest of my family's in PR. I'm the white sheep of the family, basically, but they're all, so I get that. And that's a great approach. If you can start to use your own data to promote your service, you're quoted or sourced, and then people go, gee, what's this? How do I get it? So.
And one thing, Scott, nothing against your family members, but we actually don't use
I love them. No,
but we actually don't use a PR firm ourselves.
Okay, well, I'll follow up with you on that.
Yes. No, but that being said, we've it's interesting that once you start to develop that relationship with reporters, they want to be able to go to you directly and not have to be managed through that process.
No, that's great. It takes a certain skill set. It's not something people should jump into lightly, but it's a tremendous, it's a great example of a tremendous amount of value. So, Rob here, so this idea of privacy by design, I think that's a huge idea, right? I'm sure you would agree. And so how do you start to solve for that? Do you see applications to solve for that almost at an industry level, a way to get people thinking in that way?
Well, I think it really starts from the architecture, right? So when you first, there's already a ton of regulation in the industry at specific verticals, right? So you can first you have to understand what you can do, right? And then make sure that you follow that to a T, and then build that into the architecture of your platform. And so that's really when we started the company, that's exactly what we did. We said, we're going after financial services first. We really have to understand Gramm-Leach-Bliley and FFIEC to make sure that what we want to do and deliver across these 4 million, websites, and do it with these unique one-way trusts that, it's a lot like when you had a toddler, they trusted you to feed them and to diaper them, but you didn't trust them to do anything in your house, right? So that's kind of what we're doing with these publishers is, we'll work with you, but you have to trust that we're going to do everything right, and we'll deliver the right content through the right way, as long as, we're not going to trust you at all, because the data we have is too sensitive to let just go out over the internet.
Oh, wonderful. It'll take me a while to get rid of the image of diapering publishers, but we'll deal with that. Is our time up? Is that what that light thing was, or are we still good? No, we just wanted to open it up to the audience. Is that it? I'm new at this. Anybody got questions here? We'd love to hear from the group. Yes, sir.
Do you guys have any experience in creating an index based on data that's published out in the media at all?
Sorry, could you repeat that?
Yeah, sure. Do you have any experience of creating some sort of index that, from your data, that you can regularly publish out to the media for media attention? So that way, you know, it's not an individual basis, but more or less kind of like an industry stat or something like that. And what, you know, how did you sell it and get?
Yeah, well, we actually don't have an index per se. We looked into it, and the interesting thing about, you know, compensation data, well, it's heavily front-end loaded, meaning a lot of it's disclosed in March and April. The timing of the data with public companies, it has to be followed within 120 days after the company's fiscal year end. Most of them would be in December. So the index didn't actually work well for us because over the course of the year, there isn't like, yeah, there's a lot of activity March, April, May, but then the rest of the year, like, okay, what do you report on? But what we've done, which has been pretty successful, is doing the regional, various case studies throughout, not only on the national level, but also on a regional basis. So the big one for us is the New York Times case study, which runs, it's the gift that keeps on giving. They've now done it, they're doing it twice a year. So they'll do it in early April, and then they'll do it again in late June, July, because what a lot of companies have become smart, they said, okay, well, geez, if we have until the end of April to disclose our pay, well, why do it at the beginning of April and have the New York Times beat us up? We'll file it on April 30th and avoid all that. Well, the New York Times said, well, we'll go get them. We'll catch them the second time in June, so they've captured all of them there. But the point being is the New York Times each year, they're doing, okay, according to the Equilar study, year-over-year changes. So we aren't necessarily doing it on a quarterly basis, but on an annual basis. And then doing it across the nation. We'll do it with the Chicago Tribune, LA Times, San Jose Merc, Philadelphia, Seattle, all around.
How many people do you have handling the media?
Well, it's the handling media, we have really probably, there isn't anyone full-time.
Okay.
It isn't anyone like, you know, that's his or her job only. We do have our director of governance research who, he's the one, Aaron Boyd, that gets quoted pretty regularly, but he's also out doing speaking engagements and a bunch of other things. But you know, when you think about who's handling the media, you know, it's crowdsourced, right? It's the entire company that's involved. And in our entire, you know, to do these media studies, it takes the entire, you know, we have about 40 people on our research team. So they are, you know, bits and pieces helping out on various
But talking to, I mean, there's
media
training
it's really
and
just one primary person.
Okay, yeah, and that's another thing.
Yeah.
I mean, that learned from my parents. They're out to get you, no matter what. So in terms of media training and understanding, there's a single or limited points of contact when somebody calls up is really important. So.
Yeah, you just don't want anybody taking the call.
Yeah, and all of a sudden that's your last.
We've learned our lessons.
This question is for Find the Company. I think it's Alex. So you're speaking to a room of a lot of people who charge for their product, and then you say that you license it and distribute it for free. So can you talk to that?
Yeah. Yes.
Next question. Yes, he can.
So we deal with companies that do billions of dollars in revenue with their data. So they're spending hundreds of millions of dollars a year collecting and aggregating their data. And the story that we told them, which has been true over the last year, is give us the summary view of your information. We don't need very, very advanced tools and functionality. We don't need, you know, 3,000 data points about a company. We just need 200 data points about a company. So license us that summary information. We'll show it for free on our site. We'll do all of our magic on the site, which is really useful for the, you know, millions of business professionals that don't want to pay thousands of dollars a month or thousands of dollars a year for your product. And for those that discover your information on our site, but then want to end up paying that data provider more for deeper access, we'll send you that lead all day long. And so that's been true with all of our data providers. So it's a little scary usually in that first conversation, but we show too. Sometimes we'll degrade things too. Like, so you can see right there, Apple employs 10,000 plus people. You have to click to show value. We'll negotiate in different stipulations like that in terms of how we treat and visualize the data. But yeah, I don't know. We keep trying to find that line where we're not cannibalizing, but we're still getting a lot of value, and we pay them lots of money and send them leads. So
is it really kind of a long tail opportunity for some of these bigger enterprise folks? Or
sometimes, yeah. I mean, you know, we work with a lot of companies that do $2 billion in revenue with, you know, 100 companies or you know, 500 companies. We're not going to go sell. Although it's actually been interesting because some of those clients end up using Find the Company. Some of their clients end up using Find the Company to visualize their own database that they already have access to, and they're paying millions of dollars a year to gain access to with a data provider just because it's so easy to use.
Because you've got a better user interface and they can't get to it through whatever kind of
but
legacy tool.
really, we're not focused. We're not focused on those professionals. We're focused on, you know, we don't need to give someone the Bloomberg terminal to evaluate all the financial data. They can just go on our financials comparison and see a very simple visualization that, like I said, my grandma can understand. She's a great lady. I always use her as an example.
She's actually she's here later today. I think she's keynoting tomorrow. So do you source it as well? I mean, this lead generation thing's interesting. So do you?
Sometimes when they'll let us. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Sometimes they don't want us to tell everyone that they're giving us their data. We get a lot of user-generated content as well. People.
How do you deal with that? I mean, does that stuff end up being kind of garbage?
Yeah, well, you know, we build to help. We're just like any other online publisher that's publishing potentially sensitive or interesting data. We've got help centers. We actually have one person in customer service who handles a few hundred tickets a day. So, so yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, that's all interesting. My question is, what's your revenue model?
Advertising. So we run display advertisements on you know, banner ads on the top of the pages. We also do affiliate revenue. So, for example, we'll pass someone on to go purchase a detailed credit report about a company or organization, and we'll take a cut when they go and buy that report. We're experimenting with a sponsorship product as well, so business owners can gain additional control over their profile, remove the banner ads. But yeah, it's advertising.
That's a question I have for everybody, so thank you for asking that. Just if we could go the rest of the group and give kind of a summary of what your revenue model is and the part of market you're going after.
So I'll start. We have different revenue models. We have a subscription-based for some customers that want to leverage the platform. We have a pay-for-performance, so there's no upfront cost. We go in and analyze their data, and we get basically a bounty for any conversion that we get. And then anytime we're buying direct media out over the internet with our 4 million publishers, it's a CPM model, so it's a cost per 1,000 impressions.
Sorry.
Sure. Oh, yeah. Ours is primarily subscriptions. As I mentioned earlier, selling into corporations, so it's everyone from the Fortune 500 down to even emerging private companies. But with our new product, we are selling subscriptions there, but we're also getting a fair amount of traffic on the free side that we are looking into potential advertising on.
We're subscriptions as well. We will be launching a free service in the next 2 quarters, which will be like a limited version of our web application. And then a big part of it is data as a service, which is a subscription, but it's really sometimes based on API calls and then other times just based on the particular use case that the client is using to have full access to the data.
Great. There was a gentleman who had a question, was standing up. Okay. That was it.
Question for you. Many of us in the room deal in the B2B market. The example you walked through was more of a B2C play. Any chance you're going to be providing that segmentation, identifying ideal customer profile, predictive analytics to the B2B space?
Yeah, we actually do it right now. More people ask us about our consumer model because it covers so many more consumers. But from a B2B space, we do that right now in the financial industry for our financial partners. We have something very similar to the key lifestyle indicators. We call them key business indicators. It really helps them identify if there's needs for like lines or loans or payroll services, stuff like that, where we predict when a customer is getting to a point to kind of graduate them up, and then they hit a campaign, and then we start promoting that same content. If it's at a teller ATM, when they're engaged on the channel that they're in at that time.
So you deal with people. If somebody gives you a whole bunch of people records, you can do stuff with it, right?
Without knowing their name, yes.
Without knowing their name, as long as you know them. Okay. Great. Who else? Yes, sir.
Oh, I think I've got it.
Okay, whoever has the mic can speak.
I've got the mic. There we go. Hi, Alex. I'm a 5-year veteran of Hoover's editorial production manager prior to the D&B acquisition. Interesting site. I liked it a lot. One of the things that I saw up there, you guys all did your presentations kind of quickly, but one of the things was about bad data. And as the production manager for our company, I have seen that so often, and the problem that we have with outside clients is that we can say, we can give you this, and you can get 80% of your list back, and only about 20% of it is actually going to be good, because the rest of it comes from Yelp and Manta and Yellow Pages. And what we have kind of struggled with in a way is, if you really want good data, it's really only going to come down to about this much of what you're expecting. And we've kind of had struggles with that, but as long as you can provide a convincing argument that if you could do any better, let us know, and we'll do that. I was wondering how all of you kind of deal with bad data, essentially meaning a reduction in the amount of data that you provide.
I can start. Our data is actually really good, right? And the reason I say that, right?
It's excellent. If you're on this stage, it's excellent data.
Yeah, absolutely, right? Because we're from Akron, that's why. No. Everything we do is we follow money, right? And so it's really, really hard to fake money. And so that's why the name segment. So if you're looking at point of sale transactions, or you're looking at something that's happening even in a hospital system that's being billed, or you're looking at card swipes at a financial institution, that's really, really hard to fake, right? And the ones that are faked are already caught by the fraud department before we even get the data. So from our standpoint, we're getting data that's really clean, very valuable in terms of the information that's in it. We do get other data points that, because we're a bolt-on technology, so they can give us any data points they want from their existing predictive analysis or analytics they're doing internally to add to the targeting that we do. And sometimes that's not great data, right? So we'll have to go back and say, we can take this, but there's some challenges with your data. This is what we see versus our analytics is versus what you're showing us. So that can sometimes be a difficult conversation when you're talking to a CIO that has spent millions of dollars into investment in analytics. But most of what we get, since we're really tied to the transactions, it's really, really good data.
And you get data from your client, right? So unlike these other gentlemen, you're out there, all three of you are out there grabbing a lot of stuff from the web. Mm-hmm. You're getting something that's kind of pre-curated to a certain extent because it's audience data from a client?
Yeah, everything we work with is first-party data. So it's all their data. And it's typically, we connect to their core system or their point of sale or their electronic medical records. And so it's all their data. We don't take, since we don't have any PII, we can't marry it with external party data unless they've already done that. And so sometimes we'll get that information, but most of it is their data.
Okay, so you're starting at a higher level, but I'd love to hear how the rest of you deal with that. It's a great question just about governance and knowing good from bad and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So.
We invest a lot in human curation. So we have about 110 people who work at Find the Best down in sunny Santa Barbara. Kind of like Akron, a tech capital of the world. But anyway, of that 110, probably 60 people are product managers or researchers. And so they go through an extensive process of validating the data, of collecting the information. I mean, that's one reason why a lot of the information that we bring in, especially from the Find the Best network, is the most authoritative on the planet. So we're spending hours and hours of time defining a structured taxonomy through which to understand smartphones or tablets, so that when we bring that into the Apple company profile, it's really good. So we do a lot of human curation to make sure that the data is good.
David?
Yeah, I mean, needless to say, we also invest quite a bit on our side. I mentioned earlier we have about 40 folks on our research team, and with compensation data in particular, if you're the head of HR, you're your corporate secretary, general counsel, you're going to present this data to your board. Your CEO will know his or her package and will quickly know if there's an error in that data. So our clients they know they're not going to take that risk, and we have to obviously perform at a very high level to be able to get our clients to continue to renew each year. And so we invest not only on the human capital side with the curation, but a fair amount resources in our content management application, which we've homegrown. A lot of validations built into the system where these two numbers, the sum of them can't exceed this number. We actually we have something we call internally, it's called our DQI, it's our data quality initiative, where we do scrape the filings, we pull the information in, but then we have to have humans go through and make sure that the data is accurate. We actually embed errors in that system so that somebody who's just kind of asleep at the wheel, we actually zap them. No, we don't. but essentially, but people will know, like, hey, you don't want to get a DQI, so they have to be concentrated on that. But I think the ultimate validation of on the data side is being seen in the media. And so when people know, hey, it's the same data that the New York Times relies on and others, that helps elevate the quality.
No, I mean, that's a continuing theme, and just anybody out there who has that opportunity when you're at that level in terms of an industry spokes source, if you will, it just adds a tremendous amount of validity to your data. So, Jim?
Our data is pretty good as well, largely because the majority of it comes from regulators, and so the data providers themselves would get into real trouble. The other thing is because we get data from so many different sources, we do a huge amount of statistical cross-referencing, and one of the services that we provide to our data providers, who are generally public institutions, is when we find things that we think are inaccurate, we report it back to them. And then they hopefully fix it, but also a lot of times it helps them find bad behavior on the part of their constituents. And there are certainly instances of that, but you know, we do both statistical as well as human checks on our data, and it is generally very, very accurate. But what we certify to our clients is that our data is accurate to the source, and we're always transparent as to what the source is.
Okay, that helps.
And so that's how we protect ourselves, but we're able to provide, you know, estimates of how accurate it is.
No, it's a huge issue, data quality. I mean, I've been selling data for decades, and the selling stops when you get to the data, right? You can't explain a way around it in the old, well, it's best available, or that just doesn't play today. And so, especially with a lot of new data companies coming out and thinking they can just grab whatever they want, there's a lot of stuff that's why I'm such a bigot about it. So it's real important. Great question.
I'm interested in subscription benchmarking. So whether it's the percent of your business that comes from the top 20% of your client base, or from new products, maybe it's the renewal rate on a unit or dollar basis, maybe it's your net subscription growth. My question is, how do you prioritize, and what are the most successful metrics you use in measuring success?
I can start.
Is it a broad question?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So to make sure, we're actually trying to move more away from the subscription model. And the reason why is because from a pay-for-performance standpoint, one, there's less upfront risk for our customers, but then there's also more revenue and profitability in it for us. So we already have the metrics, and we can show, you know, what we track is what we call impression to conversion. And it doesn't matter what channel that is, if it's web, if it's any access to our API, we track anytime anybody leverages any of the targeting that we're doing in the campaign that's next. And we leverage that in terms of what the full closed loop attribution reporting is. So they'll get everything back in terms of what campaign drove what behavior, that drove basically what conversion, and what the profitability of that product was. So we're going more and more to a pay for performance with all our partners and our white label products.
We don't have any subscription revenue, so.
Most of our revenue, almost all of it's subscription. So it's really growth and retention. So are we growing our ASPs? Are we growing our absolute number of clients? And then the ones that do subscribe, are retaining them each year. And you know, but retention is a lagging indicator. So we are also looking at, you know, leading indicators of what, you know, at least 6 months before subscription end date, are there any red flags that will lead us to believe that this is a chance that we won't renew?
We launched commercially in May, so we don't have a lot of renewal data yet, so usage is really what matters to us. And of course that will change. We also are starting to price to performance more in certain segments, particularly marketing and underwriting. And there, the key is really getting that customer engagement where we can see all the way through to what the results are from the install of
Yeah, I mean,
data.
it feels like for you, Alex, it's a little more direct because you know the person. I'm sorry, I got everybody's name wrong here, sorry. Rob, you know that you've got an audience member, you've got their history, you've got their transactions, it goes in sort of a closed loop.
Yep.
How do you do it, Jeremy? I mean, how do you see whether somebody's been able to perform positively off of your data? It's a little different. So.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is by using their data, back testing it, and then just keeping very close contact with our customers, really understanding the use of the data, and then seeing how they change their decisions as a result of it, which we can track.
How do you have that conversation? I mean, how do you open up that conversation?
You know, we've been lucky that our early clients have been highly engaged with us. Some of them are our investors, so that helps. And so that really helps us sort of develop around those new use cases. But so far what we found is our clients are generally sort of market leaders in terms of their use of data and are really excited to add to that resource. And so we've had very positive receptions. And I think as we expand and sort of move down the chain within a particular market, but in terms of their sophistication of using data, that it will become more and more difficult to track
enterprise
it closely.
procurement, that'll be an interesting conversation. So we want to hear about that when that's done next year. So, yes, 5 minutes left. Thank you.
To ask a question.
There we go.
Great.
Okay.
David, question for you, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you referenced in your presentation that in addition to the SEC filing where you're getting the top 5 executives, you're also collecting data on a lower tranche of executives within the corporate organization?
Correct.
How in the world does that work? How do you motivate, coerce these
Yeah,
guys
no, I had a conversation with somebody last night about that, and it's like, you know, you can't just walk up to General Electric and say, okay, what does the president of this division make? And so we've been around for about 14 years, and it was about 6 years ago when we got into the business, and you know, we recognize, hey, we're aggregating public data, you know, there's potential, you know, why can't somebody in India or, you know, Manila replicate what we're doing? And that's certainly doable. And so we said, okay, how do we build barriers to entry to our business? And lo and behold, you know, one of the pieces of feedback was, you know, for the CEO and CFO to figure out what to pay them based on the public filing, it's pretty straight, for public entities, it's pretty straightforward because you have that information across every company. It's required for the SEC. But when you start to get in you know, key roles like the general counsel, the chief marketing officer, that's not always in the top 5. And so you need to be able to accurately do that, you'll need to get that information from other companies. And so actually one of our clients came to us and said, hey, we would love to give you this data, and we will personally reach out to other companies in our industry to ask them to give you the data. We need a third party to aggregate that for us. And so we were able to get a linchpin. It was actually the chief HR officer, General Mills, and he was able to get us, you know, Procter & Gamble and some other big names to do that because we had built that reputation. Like, oh, hey, we like what these guys are doing. They're not a consulting firm. They're not going to try to, you know, upsell us consulting services and all these other things. And so, but it was, we were able to kind of build that, you know, get the island and start to build from that. But it was a bit of a slog, but well, each year the first year we got about 150, 160 companies to give us data, and mostly Fortune 500 type businesses, and we went from 150 to 350 to 500 to 700, so we actually have now over 1,000 companies where it's almost gotten to the point where, you know, hey, you know, this is a survey we need to participate in, and the one thing that we've done is, if you want to have access to that data, you have to participate and give us data. So it's not, you can't just walk in off the street and say, I want to buy that. We'll say, okay, we'll sell it to you, but you have to give us some of your data to contribute to that. So
it's a closed co-op model. If you donate, then you can be part of it. And if not, is there an aggregated level that you would license to folks outside?
Probably not. I mean, maybe not further down the road, but it's for now. We give you summary reports, but if you want to actually start to do custom runs and have access, then you subscribe and have to purchase that. So.